Hello everyone, Bag here. A few weeks ago, we got a community post from Hoyoverse with vague details about the 4th endgame game mode coming to HSR. Now that the 3.6 pre-release cycle has started, we have some more solid information about the new mode, from its gameplay to its rewards. So today, I'm gonna go through everything we know about Anomaly Arbitration, both in how it's structured, and from what you can expect from its first ever rotation. So, what is Anomaly Arbitration? This new endgame mode is a bit of an echo of other Hoyoverse endgame modes, mixing many mechanics from Zenless's Deadly Assault and Genshin's Stygian Onslaught. It is the endgame of endgame modes, in that you can't even attempt to clear this mode until you've fully cleared the first 3. You need 12 stars in Pure Fiction and APOC, and 36 stars in MOC, and in return, this game mode does not have the normal easier difficulties that precede the final actually difficult stage. It is just one difficulty setting that you need to clear. Anomaly Arbitration will have periodic updates that will not conflict with the 2-week schedule of the other endgame game modes, which is its first of many similarities to Stygian Onslaught. So what does the structure of this game mode look like? Well, it can be broken down into 2 phases, the Knight phase and the Checkmate or King phase. The latter one right now is referred to by both names. The Knight phase is incredibly similar to Zenless's Deadly Assault, being 3 different stages that requires 3 different teams. These stages don't have the usual first and second half of the other game modes. It's just 3 separate stages with 3 entirely separate scores. The King phase is the part that's similar to Stygian Onslaught, being a single fight where you can use any unit, even the ones used in the Knight phase's 3 fights. This last fight is notably difficult, and has an extra hard mode that is even more insanely difficult. To put things in perspective, the next MOC has the new Lygus boss with 11 million HP. The base King phase Lygus boss for Anomaly Arbitration has 43 million HP, and the extra hard mode has 170 million HP. Yes, I'm serious. The Lygus fight does have a permanently stackable 50% vulnerability in the fight, so the longer the fight goes, the faster you clear it, but still, this is pretty ridiculous. The thing is, clearing this extra hard mode is not required at all to get the rewards of the game mode. It's fully just there as an outlet for whales to use their E6 characters. The 3 Knight stages do not share the same insanely increased HP, but they have their own unique ways of being more difficult to fully clear, as we'll get into in a bit. But on that note, fully clearing every stage in Anomaly Arbitration is not nearly as important as in the other endgame modes, as this mode is special in not having any stellar jade rewards. Instead, most of the rewards, save for a few, are purely cosmetic, with a new pet, a pom-pom skin, name cards, and profile icons. So the theme for this game mode is more about having bragging rights for your account, rather than actually getting pulls. To get more into detail about the reward structure of this mode, Anomaly Arbitration does have a star system like the other modes. There's 9 possible stars in the Knight phase, with 3 stars per fight, and another 3 stars in the King or Checkmate phase. For every 3 stars in the Knight stage, you get 200 of the new resource that you can use to buy all the new cosmetics with, similar to the Feather resource in the other endgame modes. And every 3 stars also gets you 1 self-modulating resin. For the King phase, you get 100 of the new resource per star, and for getting 1 star, you also get a new reroll dice. This new dice must be used alongside a normal reroll dice, with it letting you block 1 substat from being rolled into. How many stars you get in the King phase also gives you a border for your player icon, although like Stygian Onslaught, this reward is temporary, and goes away with Anomaly Arbitration resets. This player icon border is also the only exclusive reward for beating the hard mode of the King phase, as beating it, or via zero cycling the non-hard mode, gets you a special 4th tier border. Lastly, you also get 100 of the new resource for just clearing each of the 3 Knight stages at all, even if you get 0 stars, just as a basic clear bonus. All of the cosmetics in the in-game shop are not time gated, so if you don't have a min-maxed account and there's something that you really want, you could just save up your currency throughout multiple rotations, given that you can at least barely clear some of the content. The final thing worth noting about the new currency is that you can also buy 200 of it with the feathers in the usual endgame shop. So you don't even need to play Anomaly Arbitration to slowly accumulate this currency. It'll just take a really long time if you aren't getting a good amount of stars. For reference, the new pet is 1,600 of the new currency, the pom-pom skin is 800, the profile icons and name card are 400, and you can also buy 10 Tears of Dreams for 200 each. A plug here to subscribe. If you want full pre-release coverage of Evernight and Donghung PT, then you should stick around. And if you're a regular watcher of mine, then make sure if you're actually subbed. I would greatly appreciate you making that number go up. Anyways, back to the vid. So okay, we've gone through the rewards, but what about the actual requirements to get the stars in each stage? Well, like Memory of Chaos, this game mode is cycle-based, but things aren't exactly the same, as the way cycles work in this mode is slightly different. In Memory of Chaos, the first cycle cycle of a fight has 150 action value, with every cycle afterwards having 100. In Anomaly Arbitration, the first cycle has 300 action value, with every other cycle having 100 as normal. But, and this is really important, unlike in MOC, going from the first wave to the second wave does not reset the action value. It's a continuous counter that persists throughout the entire fight. So you can basically think of it as the same amount of action value as if you zero cycled the first wave of MOC. But now, you get rewarded for clearing early, through having more action value to work with in the second wave. Whereas in MOC, clearing the first wave too quickly can be detrimental, since you waste free turns that can be used to generate resources for your characters. The 300 action value of the first cycle also means that for the speed breakpoints of staying within the first cycle, it's the same as MOC but with the values doubled. 133.4 speed gets you 4 turns instead of 2, while you now need 166.7 speed for 5 turns, and an even 200 speed for 6 turns. The star requirement for the night phase stages are to clear within 2 cycles, to clear in 4 cycles, or to just clear it all with no downed characters. In which case you have a total of 6 cycles to get this and the clear bonus. For the king phase, the star requirements are for within 2 cycles, 4 cycles, and 6 cycles. If you want to clear within 2 cycles, that means that you have 500 action value to work with, meaning that you get 6 actions in 120 speed, or 7 actions in 140 speed, 8 actions with 160 speed, and so on. The last thing to note here is that the hard mode version of the checkmate fight only gives you 3 cycles total to work with, as in 2 cycles after the 0 cycle. So that's why there are no specific clear requirements to get its reward, other than just straight up beating it. So that's enough about the overall structure. Let's get more into what you can actually expect from playing the mode. Each fight has 1 to 2 debuffs that are placed on your team. For this first iteration, the first stage, which has the past, present, and future enemies, gives enemies a damage reducing armor, with this armor being shredded after each time the enemy is broken. Stage 2, which has the meme something unto death enemy, reduces crit damage dealt to the enemy by 3% for every 1% of HP that they've lost. And finally, stage 3, which just has a bunch of regular enemies, gives all enemies a sort of thorns effect. And any non-elite enemies are invincible, but they die instantly when all elite enemies are defeated. Something to clarify here is that these night stage enemies are the same level as they are in MOC, so the HP total per fight shouldn't be too higher than what we're used to. For example, the second night stage, across the 2 waves, has a total of 7 million enemy HP. The first half of the next MOC also has about 7 million HP across its 2 waves. The 2 factors that make a full clear more difficult in this mode are the debuffs and the shorter amount of allotted action value. While you have 5 cycles in MOC to work with to be on track to 3-star, you instead only have 2 cycles in Anomaly Arbitration. This, combined with the pretty substantial debuffs and no MOC buff to work with, means that it'll be pretty easy to clear within 6 cycles for the standard clear bonus and 1-star victory, but 3-starring can be a much higher bar. The final king or checkmate phase also has debuffs, but it, and only it, also has buffs that you can select from to give to the team, like APOC or Pure Fiction. These buffs are pretty substantial. 60 damage percent if the team has more or less than 4 teammates, 40 death shred when ulting and for the unit's next skill after ulting, or 25% damage reduction and 20 res pen just for being shielded or healed. Meanwhile, Legacy's stage debuffs includes the same Thorns-like debuff from the 3rd stage, an energy sapping mechanic that also rewards extra energy when defeating an enemy, and a stacking vulnerability debuff on ally units that can only be cleansed with shields or healing. The hard mode version of this fight also has the same debuffs, but with higher values, so have fun with that. To end this video off, I want to give my own brief thoughts on what this game mode means for HSR. At a baseline, I don't think it's bad to have this ultra endgame mode that gives another outlet for high-end gameplay. One of the most common and valid complaints for HSR's content cycle is that you don't have enough tangible things to do with the characters that you pull. If you can clear consistently and quickly, then most of this game's content just boils down to using whatever team is best suited for a given fight, clearing in 10 minutes and then closing the game, with you getting another 10 minutes of content to do every 2 weeks. So having this higher peak to aspire to is both nice to have something to retry over and over again to get that perfect clear, but it also gives more incentive to actually care about how you build your account. This incentive is done purely through bragging rights, having no actual stellar jades attached to it, and having its new currency be easily attainable at low levels of investment means that if you don't care about this higher peak of content, you are not punished as a player. But on the other hand, this viewpoint that I've just laid out feels a bit oblivious to the problem at hand. Whether or not there are actual stellar jades on the line, low to medium spenders will feel obligated to reach this higher peak. And that so-called peak is really just filled with shield content that heavily favors a select few separate teams per fight. And with 4 fights in total, that's a lot that you need to plan around, assuming that you don't have literally every support and carry in the game on your account. For players that want to clear any content that this game throws at them, this higher volume of team requirements requirements and higher thresholds for damage requirements will lead to more spending. You can argue about how valid that pipeline actually is, thanks to its lack of stellar jade incentives, but you cannot argue that this is the reality of it. There is a large amount of people who are going to spend more to keep up with this mode, in where they otherwise wouldn't spend, while keeping up with the current endgame that we have in 3.5. To clarify, I don't think most players will care about the hard mode version of the checkmate fight, as its difficulty is just so clearly made with whales in mind. But even the normal version of the fight might be difficult enough to full clear for most people, to where they will change how they spend and save their pulls. Hell, even I feel more incentivized to save my pulls for the next Trippy-like character, so that I can pull optimally for their inevitably broken E1 or S1. And for many people who both like to clear whatever this game throws at them, while not spending too much money, a fully optimal pulling plan like that sounds like a chore when all they would want to do is pull and clear with their favorite units. I don't really think that there's an objectively correct way to look at this. The lack of stellar jades is definitely a step in the right direction, as if there were stellar jades attached here, that would just mean lowering the stellar jade rewards in other sources to maintain the pull per patch quota that they would want to have. But I also think it's a pretty easy pitfall for many people to fall into, with the whole, you're not a real Star Rail player unless if you can clear Anomaly Arbitration in this amount of stars angle. Most of a gacha game's revenue comes from people making irrational choices due to how the game is structured. So no, I don't think a lack of stellar jades will stop people from spending their money unhealthily. I really want more frequent endgame game modes that I can throw my account's teams at. So I do want to overall be positive on this mode, but I don't like the way that's making me change my thinking for my polls. It is also just hard to really get a full grasp of how this game mode will pan out. The first iteration of the new Pure Fiction was way easier than any other iteration, while the first Apoc Shadow was instead pretty difficult compared to many future rotations. I don't know. I'm too mixed on the mode as a whole to really give a sweeping "it's good" or "it's bad" statement, so I'll open the floor to you all. Let me know in the comments what you think of this new mode, and where do you see HSR's endgame going in the future. A quick stop to the channel member corner. Y'all are the goats, and I appreciate every single one of you. Let's give a round of applause to them. Okay everyone? Yep. Hey, at least one of you clapped alone in your room right now, and that's good enough for me. Alright, with that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye!